This is the Halting Winter Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Winterhalter. Halting Winter is dedicated to helping leaders and organizations break through barriers, to overcome obstacles, so that they can operate at peak performance, becoming all they were meant to be, and doing all that they put their mind to do. Want to encourage you, if you are looking for personal coaching, if you're looking for corporate consulting, go to HaltingWinter.com and let us see if we can help you. Schedule a call for us to hear more about where you're at and what we might do to help you break through those barriers and overcome those obstacles. Today on the Halting Winter Podcast, I just want to encourage you to invest in yourself. How can you invest in yourself? You know, in the news, we're now hearing about this massive crypto fall apart. You're hearing, we're in an economic recession. It's just so easy to buckle down, to get very afraid, to be, to allow your mindset to not be one of thriving, but one of scarcity, one of survival. And there are times for that. There are times when we need to be very mindful, and we should always be mindful, right? But one of the things I think that we can be tempted to do is to not invest. And it doesn't take always the resources that you don't have to have millions sitting around to invest. How are you investing your time? How are you investing the bandwidth of your mind? How are you investing the resources that you have, whether that is finances, whether that is team camaraderie? I mean, there's so many aspects of a thriving person and of a thriving organization that can be looked at, assessed, and poured into so that they become what they're meant to be, and that is to operate at peak performance. I want to encourage you, something I just did this last week, always, in starting a consulting company and doing coaching, always wanting to grow myself. And so I've always been a passionate learner. I have multiple degrees, multiple master's degrees, studies. I've started master degree programs and stopped. I've pursued doctorate degrees and stopped just because I didn't. That's the other thing too. Sometimes you'll start something and you'll be like, this isn't, the investment may not be worth it. It may not be either doing what you aimed for it to do, or there might be other opportunities. Might be the wrong time, and you can stop something too. This idea of that if you begin something, you have to start it. If you begin something, you have to bring it to completion is just not true. You have the power over your life to do whatever you want, basically. And so I think you should be mindful of how are you investing in yourself? How are you growing? How are you developing? And what options are around you for that? And whether that's courses or coaching or learning or, right? I have a library of now over almost 5,000 books. Why? Because I want to be a constant learner. I want to be constantly thinking and challenging my thinking, learning new things, broadening my horizons and my scope. One of the things I did this last week is I went through a coaching certification program. Donald Miller and his Story Brand company has a coaching certification program, and I've loved Donald Miller for a long time. Blue Like Jazz came out probably 2 decades ago, and it was a very insightful book at an insightful time for me. And now Don's doing just some great work with Story Brand, helping organizations understand the totality of their organization. He believes in I believe it's a 6-part, 7-part framework. He uses an airplane, talks about the cockpit and the wings and the fuselage, all the parts of an airplane, representing parts of a business. And he now is more than just helping with marketing. It's now sales and back-end operations and finances. And so this coaching program that I went through this last week, the intensive part of it, it's a 3-day intensive, it just really helped. I did 3 things. I learned some things. I learned not just, there were things I learned that weren't just in raw learning, like new information. Some of it was information I already knew, but seen through a different prism, a different lens. And that helped. That helped me learn. Learning then helped me think. It helped me think how I would use that content, how I would adapt that content to already the learning that I have, already the thinking that I do. How would I bring that into the fold of my understanding? And so I learned. It made me think. That thinking then is leading to actions. How am I going to put that into actions? And that's really the goal of investing in yourself, of learning, of thinking, is that you act upon it. I read something the other day that talked about what was it? I think it was a reel on the old Instagrams. The guy was talking about personalities, and it's something to the concept of this. He was talking about how there was a guy at work who, he was the reader. He was like the self-help reader, the leadership development reader. This guy knew all the books. He listened to all the podcasts. But this guy was just the worst. He was the most just inefficient. It was like he wasn't putting any of what he read or listened to into action. And the point of the reel was, you can learn all the things in the world, but if you're not self-aware enough to know yourself, to be able to then act in light of those for you personally, what's the good of learning? And I really want to challenge you on that, because I think most of the people probably listening to this podcast are learners. You probably have a decent library at home with a lot of books. You probably listen to podcasts like this one. You probably surround yourself with very insightful, successful people. But if you're just taking in all of that information but never challenging yourself to act upon it, you're missing out on the entire reason why we invest. We invest to see a return, and that return on investment does not happen unless you put things into action. And so you may ask, why would you spend thousands of dollars? I spent thousands of dollars on this coaching program. Why? Because I want to grow. I want to continue to get better. Why? Because my clients deserve 4-star, 5-star, right? Whatever the highest star is, they deserve 5-star results. They deserve the best of the best. If you're going to hire me for coaching and consulting, I want you to know that I'm pouring into myself, that I'm not coming to you with some like, well, I have 20 plus years of experience, and so therefore I just know everything there is to know. It doesn't matter if I have 50 years of experience. There's still more to grasp, still more to learn, and times change. Things evolve. If you're using the marketing systems of 20 years ago, of even 10 years ago, you're in the dust. And so I deserve better, my clients deserve better, and the world deserves better. The world deserves, right? If you're going to have a company, if you're going to be a person who is influencing and impacting the world, it deserves your best. It deserves the best products. It deserves the best thinking. It deserves the best actions. And so I want to encourage you. How are you investing in yourself? How are you investing in your company? How are you investing in your people? And there are many ways to invest, whether that's courses or coaching or seminars, culture. How are you engaging? This is a great time to how to figure out how to really invest in your culture. And I should probably do a podcast on that alone. I'm working with a client right now who's a CEO of a large organization, and they're really struggling with their team culture, their team camaraderie. Why? Because I think one of the biggest things, and maybe you'll relate to this, is just COVID with the whole work from home thing. When you move to a work from home thing, you lose a ton of just the office dynamics. And there are both bad and good in office dynamics, right? But one of the good is just people create relationships. It's hard to create relationships over Zoom. It's hard to create relationships without physical proximity, physical contact. So how do we do that in this new world? How do we do that when companies are staying remote? I just watched one of the leaders, I don't know if it's the CEO, I can't remember now, but one of the leaders of Apple I think it was on a TikTok reel, was talking about how they're encouraging their people to come back, and what were some of the issues with that. And he was trying to play it off like, well, some of these people have moved, from wherever, San Francisco to like Kansas, and of course they don't want us to go back into the office because they're thousands of miles away. And I'm sure there's a reality to that, but there are lots of realities as to why people don't want to go back to the office, and it's not just because they've moved or because they're trying to keep grandma healthy. It's because there are parts of the office that if you don't have a healthy work culture, if the office to a lot of your workers may feel like just a place of the grind. It may be a place of frustration. It may be a place of where they don't feel appreciated. And that's a culture thing. And if you're a leader, that's on you. And so one of the things you can invest in right now is your culture. How could you spark some camaraderie? How can you think creatively, both when you do gather in person to create that momentum, but also how do you create that in an online setting where you're just going to rub shoulders via, whether it's Zoom or whatever technology you're using. We have to think creatively. We have to think different. You can't go back to culture books from 2015 or before and figure that out. They're not going to have it because the world was different then. The world is different now, and so we need to think through this in new ways, in current reality ways. That's why we have to keep investing in ourselves. Learning, thinking, most of all, acting upon that which we learned. So, want to encourage you, if we can help, hit us up, HaltingWinter.com. Learn how we can help. Schedule a call, and we would love to hear where you're at personally for personal coaching, where your organization is for corporate consulting, and maybe you just need a refresh with some culture, with some. I'd love to come out and speak to your organization and fire them up, get them on mission, get them rowing in the same direction, feel like they have purpose and value and worth again in how they're contributing to their organization. So a lot of things, a lot of ways we can help. Again, check us out, HaltingWinter.com. Until next time.